welcome to This Week from Blue Mountain Broadcasting. I'm Lynelle Ellis, president of Blue Mountain Broadcasting Association, and it is great to have you here with me right now. During this program, we're going to be talking with Holly Bryant, principal at Rogers Adventist School, and I'm looking forward to that. And also, I've got some interesting station news to share with you at the end of the program, so please stay tuned. First of all, though, let's start with a devotional thought. You know, it really is hard to watch or read the news lately. There's injustice, unrest, discontentment, fear, and instability all around us. And when the world around me feels out of control, I often turn to a favorite psalm. This is Psalm 37. And for some reason, I come back to it over and over again. And I thought it would be really good for us to read that psalm together today. And then after that, we'll kind of break it down a little bit and look at some specific passages within this psalm. Let's read it. Do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the workers of iniquity. For they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. He shall bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm. Now let's look at that first line again in light of what's going on in our world and how we may feel about the situation around us. Do not fret because of evildoers. Clearly, we see things going on around us that are unjust, and we see people responding in a number of different ways to lots of situations where we feel fearful or we feel like things aren't right. And we've seen some people responding peaceably and some people responding violently. And the more that we look at the news, both national and international, the more concerned we could become with the volatile world we see around us. But here we get this advice in the psalm. Do not fret because of evildoers. There is just going to be evil around us, but our focus can't be on the evil. Instead, we need to give our attention to the opposite of evil, to the good. Verse 3 says, trust in the Lord and do good. It's a very simple direction. First, we trust God. We look to him. We count on him. We put ourselves in his safe care. And then we do good. Not evil, but good. And you know, God's really the only one who is going to be able to make this happen through me and through you. He's the one who's going to do the good through us. And that is a beautiful thing. The verse continues, dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. God wants us to live peaceably. He wants us to be dwelling and resting and living in him. And the food that we have, the spiritual food that we have, is his faithfulness. That translates into physical food as well, and all of our needs being met because God is faithful and he cares for us. Trusting in God and dwelling with him are essential. But God has even more in store for us. As Jesus said, he came into this world to give us abundant life, not just life, but abundant life. And so in verse 4 of this Psalm 37, we read, delight yourself also in the Lord. I really like that word delight, because delight is a joyful word. It represents joy. And when we delight in the Lord, he promises to give us the desires of our hearts. That's amazing. And from my own experience, I found that the more that we delight in the Lord, the more that our desires end up being aligned with his will for us. And that is such a wonderful place to be in life, where the things that I want and the desires that I have are in tune with God's will for me because I have been giving my life and my heart to Him. And then the psalm adds this: commit your way to the Lord. To me, that means being really serious about it. Commitment, that kind of word, surrender of my life to God's will. And then God promises to bring forth righteousness and justice as bright as the noonday sun. And that is what we need in our world right now. We need it in our own lives. We need God's righteousness being brought forth in each of us individually and in our world that will shine as bright as the beautiful summer sun that we have right now when we're in the longest days of the year, and that noonday sun is right up there straight above us. Finally, the psalm reminds us to rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him. This is the hardest part of this whole psalm for me. Resting and waiting. I'm kind of an action person. I'm kind of a control person. Get in there and do it and make it happen and work hard, and if you don't like your situation, do something to change it. But this has been a very important message for me, and I'm sure it is for all of us, that we need to wait for God's timing. Rest in Him. Take that rest that Christ promised us, that peaceful rest, knowing that He's in control and He's going to take care of everything around us, and waiting so patiently for His good timing. The passage that I chose for today ends with this: cease from anger and forsake wrath. Can we do that? We need to do that in our world today. There's too much anger. If we could turn our lives over to God, surrender to Him, and treat each other the way we would want to be treated, and love each other and respect each other, ceasing from wrath and forsaking anger. And then finally, the last words of this passage that we read today are, do not fret. It only causes harm. And I suppose I return to this over and over because this is what I need to hear. Not to fret, not to worry, not to be distressed over the issues in my own life and the issues in the world. It's really direct and really practical. Do not fret. It only causes harm. Worrying and stressing about stuff only diminishes our health. It only reduces the quality of our life. It is so much better to trust, to dwell, and to delight. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. And welcome back to This Week from Blue Mountain Broadcasting. Joining me now is Holly Bryant, principal at Rogers Adventist School. And Holly, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, we want to talk with you about what's happened recently for schools. But first of all, I did say you were principal, but talk a little bit more about your role at the school.
Sure. So Rogers is a Seventh-day Adventist school, K to 8th grade. We have about 300 kids, and so I have about 25 staff members that care for these kids, and my job is everything from planning assemblies to discipline to inspiring the teachers to doing observations and just getting to be with the kids. So it's a little bit of everything, which keeps me busy.
What did the end of this school year look like at Rogers Adventist School?
It was crazy. Like most schools, we had very little notice that we were going to be thrown into remote learning. And so I think it was Friday, March 13, that we heard from the governor that schools are closing down. And so I immediately contacted my teachers and said, Sunday, we're getting together. We got to figure out a plan because we got to keep teaching school. And so we met on Sunday and probably spent 7 or 8 hours together hatching a plan. Luckily, we could be in school that Monday the 16th, and so we were able to disperse Chromebooks, laptops to kids. We were able to teach kids how to get onto Google Classroom, how to go to the different learning platforms that we had set up. And then March 17th, we started school. And so it was a really rapid turnaround, and I was so proud of my staff because for them to turn on a dime just like that, and for us, we didn't halt learning. We never said, okay, we're just going to refresh and review for the next 10 weeks. We said we have to keep going with our curriculum. If we were teaching multiplication, now we're moving to division, and we have to do that in a way that meets kids' needs, that meets parents' needs. And it was a challenge for sure, but we pulled it off.
You did pull it off, because I'm a parent. It was amazing. I mean, when we think about, I do some online teaching, and you think about how long you sort of prepare and plan for how that's going to be, and to pull that off over a weekend, that's amazing.
It was crazy. It was crazy. And I think we learned things, though, strategies and tactics that I can see us still using for the future. Things that we hope we're back in school, in normal school, whatever that means. But there's still things that we've learned from that that I think makes our teaching stronger. And we were forced into that, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of feedback did you hear from students during this time?
Well, you know, it was really varied, and that wouldn't surprise you, certainly. We did a survey to parents because, having never done this before, we weren't certain, are we giving enough work? Not enough work? How do parents feel about the technology piece? Because you had some families where every kid had access to a device of some sort, and you had other families where maybe there was one computer for the whole family to share, or maybe mom and dad were at work and grandma was taking care of the kids, and grandma didn't necessarily have the technology or even the Wi-Fi that a kid would need. And so we sent out a survey to parents trying to find out, how well are we communicating? What's the balance like for technology versus paper packets? We kind of had a balance between, especially our younger grades, K to 4, even K to 6, did a lot of paper packets for those kids who either didn't have access to Wi-Fi or a computer, or maybe families didn't even want them to, because as much as we were passing out laptops left and right for kids to use and to check out, you still have varying philosophies about how much screen time kids should have. And so we would hear from parents, I don't want my kid on their device all the time. Please give us hard copy books, papers to work on, versus other families who would say, well, this is ridiculous. We can't be passing back these packets all the time. We want it all to be online. And
That's
so
a tough,
it is a
balance.
tough balance. And we heard overarching, it was a pretty good balance that we had maintained. We did hear about halfway through too much work. And the great thing about a smaller school is that my teachers can turn on a dime and they can say, okay, too much, we can back off. Or we can structure things differently. So instead of having math, reading, science, all separate classes, let's have one thematic unit here where all 3 of those subjects are being covered, but not as many busy work things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also as a parent, I remember getting those surveys, and that was really helpful. It felt good to be able to give feedback about how it was going. We almost immediately ordered 2 new computers at our home, and we had to borrow one for a while, and we're really glad that we could, because you're right. Suddenly we realized, you know, one computer and a tablet is not going to cover what, especially when I was working from home too.
And that's exactly it. We'd have moms say, well, yeah, I'm at home with my kid, but I need to be on my computer. They can't be watching the YouTube clips they're supposed to be watching or getting on Google Classroom. We need something else.
Yeah, we spent a week juggling, and then we realized something has to change.
Yeah.
So how about the teachers? You know, what's it been like for them?
Well, I think they would tell you, nobody really knew what this was going to look like, right? And I think maybe initially we thought, well, it might be kind of like a snow day, because we planned for inclement weather days where kids have stuff that they work on at home. But it was so much more intense than that, because for those inclement weather days, we're really just sort of maintaining, we're not pushing forward. So teachers realized, number one, they had to be available to parents, not just 8 to 3, but like 8 to 10, because parents were working and they'd come home and maybe the kid didn't really understand what the assignment was, and so then they're calling that teacher at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And what we said, our commitment at Rogers was top-notch communication and customer service, and that means being available when your customer needs you. And so I think they found that their hours were much longer than they were used to, and then realizing that they had to find different ways of providing instruction. I mentioned some families didn't want their kids on technology too much, and so there would be some who would say, no, I don't want a Zoom meeting, or I don't want my child to be watching a YouTube explanation. I want you to FaceTime my child. I want you to call my child. So there was a lot more one-on-one that was just a bigger time suck than I think teachers had imagined. But they also got a really good picture then of what their student might be dealing with at home. Because when you're Zooming from home or you're FaceTiming, then all of a sudden, even our music teacher talked about how she could see when she was giving online violin instructions, oh, you don't have a music stand. This is why you've had a hard time with your bow holder, your posture or whatever, because you're looking down at the music on a table. Some of these other things that helped us learn more about our students was really valuable.
We had a lot of violin and viola lessons at our home on Zoom, headsets and playing.
Yeah.
It was a different thing. So I'm kind of answering my next question. What's the response from parents been, just by some of the feedback I'm giving you? And you've addressed that some, but I'm going to say that obviously teachers went way beyond what they normally do for a 3-month period almost, or thereabouts.
Yeah.
So parents pretty positive?
Yeah, I think so. You know, because I think the frustration that they had wasn't directed toward us. They knew that this wasn't anything that we were in control of, and it wasn't anything that we could change per se. And so we did really get people who had a lot of patience for us. And I think inviting ideas and inviting feedback makes people feel like, well, even if they don't take my idea, they at least listened. They at least had the opportunity to speak up. And so that helped a little bit. That being said, that was under an emergency survival kind of setting. Next year could be a whole different story, and that's a big challenge for us.
It is, and I want to talk about next year because I think everybody felt like we were all sort of pulling together to get through something, right, till we could get to the end of the school year. And I had 8th graders, and there was all that angst about graduation, and you pulled off a really great one.
Thank you.
So what is it going to be like next year, or can you even know?
Well, we're making our best guess. I mean, I think we've all seen that even in a matter of weeks, things can change, right? You know, a month ago, we had totally different ideas about the virus or about how school would look like than we do now, and school doesn't start for another 2 months. And so how much could change between now and then? A lot, certainly. OSPI, the Office of Superintendent in Public Instruction, they set guidelines for Washington state schools, and for the public schools, those are mandates. For private and independent schools, we use those as guidelines still, and so we're not necessarily tied to all of those guidelines, but we also have to be safe because those guidelines are set for a reason, to keep us all safe and healthy, and so we have that really fine line of trying to do what we think is best for our schools and our communities in every way. And so our biggest priority is that kids be in school Monday through Friday, 8 to 3. And I think there's been a lot of talk about split schedules and a Monday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday, or morning classes or afternoon classes. And what we know for our parents who pay tuition, they need their kids to be in school. They have to go to work.
Yes.
If they have to be at home, and it's one thing if you're a high school and the kid can stay home unsupervised and get their work done, that's a little more doable. It's not optimal, but it's doable. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they can't stay home by themselves. And so if I'm saying your child can only come to school Monday and Wednesday, well, what do you do then Tuesday and Thursday? You can't work. And so we've said whatever it takes, we've got to be in school Monday through Friday, 8 to 3. What that looks like is still kind of up for grabs. You know, we're talking about everything from temp checks at the front door to masks to sanitation stations at every classroom. I mean, the sky's the limit, I guess, but I think having a goal there for here's the must do, now to figure out what are the little pieces that you have to tweak to make that happen. That's sort of our next challenge.
Yes, very good. Well, I know that students are looking forward to being back in school. Hearing from my own, who used to say every morning, oh, is it really school today? To suddenly like, oh, I wish I could go to school. So it's actually a great place to go.
That's right. Teachers think the same. Absolutely. We're really anxious to be back in school too.
All right. Well, I thank you for this update, and we will see how things progress. We'll probably need to hear more from you when we get next fall.
That's right. Lots could change, but thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Holly. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Welcome back. It's time now for Station News, and I'm happy to report a program that's coming up that I think you'll find really special, and that is the Upper Columbia Conference Camp Meeting. This is a virtual camp meeting this year, and it's going to be taking place on Blue Mountain Television from June 18 through 23. And meetings are going to be on a 1-night delay. So they'll be taking place the night after they are happening live. And you're going to start tuning in on Thursday at 7 p.m. That's when the first program will be. And then we're going to have programs starting at 6:30 because of a children's program that will take place as well, each of those remaining nights. There's also going to be a Sabbath afternoon concert with this camp meeting that's going to be put on by Buddy Hotelling. We've got a couple of his CDs at our house, so I'm looking forward to that. And that's going to be aired on Blue Mountain Television the last night of our camp meeting presentations, which will be Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And the theme for camp meeting is search and rescue. So that sounds like an intriguing theme, an intriguing topic. And Rich Aguilera is going to be the speaker for the children, and Lee Venden will be the main speaker. Lee used to be a pastor here in our valley, and I know many of you know him personally and are really going to be looking forward to hearing from him. And my kids tell me that Rich Aguilera is really good too. So I think we'll have a lot to look forward to with this Upper Columbia Conference Camp Meeting broadcast. And remember, that's June 18 through 23. Also, we should update you about our new facility. I tend to talk about it each time that we're here together, and right now we've run into a challenge, so your prayers are appreciated for this. There's been an issue with installing the base for our tower that we're putting out at our new facility on Wallula Road. Inadvertently, the engineers sent us the wrong directions for the base that we needed to create for the tower. So the hole that we have excavated is not the right size. And so right now we're trying to figure out how that's going to get resolved. And we have our engineers working on it. We have the tower company working on it. And there will be a good resolution coming up, but it does represent a delay in the process as we get all of these things worked out and get everything suited, because of course we want everything to be engineered just perfectly and situated so that we'll have a good, strong tower to put our broadcasting equipment on. And an update about Secret Life of the Desert. I know this is a show that you're looking forward to, and I really am too. We keep showing you little clips of footage on this program, and all it does is just whet my appetite for when we're going to see the whole thing. And again, inviting your prayers, because our team is going out on another trip to get footage for that. They're going to the San Juan Islands, and that's going to be happening next week. And they are going to be looking for a rare butterfly there and hoping to get footage of it. So I can't wait to see what they'll have when they return. And very importantly, I must talk with you about our summer fundraiser. Summer fundraiser, June 29 and 30. These are very important dates for you to tune into the station starting at 6 o'clock. And this is going to be interactive and fun. We are going to have guests here who are ready to answer your questions. And so one of the purposes of it is, of course, raising funds for Blue Mountain Television, but also to interact with you and get you some answers to questions that you have about the natural world around us. We're going to have Mike Denny there to talk about that. And then we're also going to have Rolando and Janelle Fulgencio, who are going to be talking to us on the medical side, sharing with us about what we might do to boost our immune systems and keep ourselves healthy physically and spiritually during these challenging times that we're going through with this worldwide pandemic. And there is going to be a lot of fun too. Many of you are familiar with the Carpenter family. Sean and Holly Carpenter and their kids, they're going to be sharing with us some bluegrass gospel music, and I can't wait to hear that music during our fundraiser, and also some recipes from Ted Carpenter, not related to the other Carpenters. So you can expect really some fun stuff and some tasty treats, and good time to be interactive with us at the station as we share with you and you call in. And we find a way to enjoy these 2 days of summer together and also raise the needed funds that we need for the continued operation of our broadcast facility, Blue Mountain Television, which has been a blessing here in our community for just over 30 years. So I can't wait to spend those 2 evenings with you. Lowell and I are going to be there too, hosting and taking calls from you and hearing from you. And so really, really looking forward to it. That, of course, leads me into the fact that we do need donations at Blue Mountain Television. As you are well aware, it's a viewer-supported ministry, and so your extra gifts right now to help us with a boost as things have been a little bit tight over the last few months are greatly, greatly appreciated. As God has blessed you, I pray that you will reach out and bless Blue Mountain Television as well. That's it for this particular episode of This Week at Blue Mountain Broadcasting. I look forward to seeing you next week, and thank you for tuning in.